Up to this point, we've discussed several important tasks in treatment planning that included connecting with clients, collecting background information, and cognitive conceptualization. Now is the time to introduce the idea of structure in CBT sessions. In this context, structure refers to the way in which CBT therapists conduct their meetings with clients. From the initial greeting to setting an action plan to be completed between sessions. Structure provides advantages to the therapeutic process in different ways. First, by collaboratively setting an agenda at the beginning of a session, therapists and clients are assured that they will spend the session working on the most important issues. In other words, structure allows us to be as efficient as possible. It is important to set the agenda collaboratively because research shows that when clients actively contribute to the session structure, they benefit from treatment sooner than if they do not contribute. Next, structuring a session makes certain that we have enough time to use evidence-based techniques to address certain clients' issues, problems, or goals. Finally, we need to recognize that clients actually spend very little of their time in session with therapists. Having a clear session structure ensures that therapists and clients have adequate time to develop action plans. Well-formulated action plans help clients continue to use coping strategies and practice new skills in between therapy sessions. This, in turn, will facilitate a faster pace toward meeting treatment goals. In CBT, we think of therapy sessions as having three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. There are no clear lines dividing these parts. It is more a matter of three different categories of tasks that may overlap in time. At the beginning of the session, we make a bridge between the last session and this one by asking for new data and feedback about our previous sessions. We use this information to set an agenda for the current session by working with the clients to identify and prioritize all of the things that could be worked on in that session. The middle, or the second part of the CBT session, is used to apply evidence-based techniques to the agenda items prioritized by clients. At the end, or during the third part of the session, therapists and clients summarize items discussed. Therapists solicit feedback from clients about their reactions to the therapist, the session, and the treatment techniques being used. Ideally, feedback is solicited throughout the session, but completing it at the end of the session is crucial. Additionally, in the last part of the session, therapists and clients collaborate to make between-session action plans as attainable as possible. Now, I would like you to watch this next video as I explain the CBT session structure and its rationale to my client Pete. Pete, I'd like to elaborate a little bit on what I said earlier about the session being in three parts. I'd like to give you a little more detail about that so that you know what to expect each time that you would come in. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'd like to know what I'm walking into, yeah.
Okay. So I mentioned that we kind of think about our sessions as occurring in three different parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end, to put it simply. But in the beginning and the middle and the end, there are certain specific things that we focus on at each time. So I want to tell you what that is so that you know exactly, as you say, what you're walking into, what to expect, and how things will run. So this is really about how we run the sessions. At the beginning of the session, when you come in, there are several different things that I will ask you about, like how things were for you since the last time that we met or the last time that we talked. We talked about those action plans, how you made out with those, if you were able to do those or had any problems with them. I would also ask you if you had any reaction or takeaway messages from our previous meeting, or whether you had any feedback for me about what was good or what wasn't good. Also, it's really important and helpful to us that each session we will ask you either to complete checklists or to give a kind of a rating. For you, I would be inclined to ask you to give what we call a numeric rating on a scale of 0 to 10. Like, for instance, I know that you've been dealing with pain for a long time. So each time I would ask you to tell me on a scale of 0 to 10, how is your pain today? I know that you feel depressed at times, and I would ask you on a scale of 0 to 10, how deeply depressed are you today? I would ask you that each time, and we kind of use that as a kind of a guide, if you will, and a feedback system in order for us to know if what we're doing is being helpful to you or not. So some people wonder, why do we have to ask that every time? And it's because we want to make sure that what we're doing is actually helping you to get where you want to go. The final, go ahead. Did you have a question about that?
Do you ever skip any of these sections? Like if I was like, I don't really want to talk about last session this time or anything like that?
Well, if I don't usually skip questions, but if there's something that you don't want to talk about, I would certainly respect that and I would honor that. I would want to know probably why you didn't want to talk about the last session, and I would be concerned that I had done something that rubbed you the wrong way if indeed you didn't want to talk about the last session. So we would have to work our way through that, because I want to respect that and honor that you don't want to talk about it. But on the other hand, if I have done something that rubbed you the wrong way, I would want to know about that so that I didn't do it again. Is that a fair response to your question about that?
Fair enough, yeah.
The last thing that we do at the beginning of the session is make a list of the things that we're going to talk about and work on in today's session. So based upon maybe what your mood is, what kinds of positive and negative experiences you've had over the week, what your experience with doing the action plan was, and whether or not there was anything left over from the last session. We want to know all of that before we make a list, because sometimes things from those things that we've already talked about would go on our list of the agenda items for today's session. And there could be something entirely different that I don't know about that would be important to you for us to talk about. And we would want to put that on the list as well. And then we would prioritize them and make sure that the things that are most important to you are the things that we work on first in the session. So that's the beginning of the session. How does that sound to you?
It sounds pretty simple, but it also sounds pretty complex. I guess that's a lot of, would we talk about something different every week? Or I guess whatever comes to mind?
Well, we would talk about issues that have come up during the week, or new issues, or the longer term goals for treatment. So the things that we talk about are going to be those things that we would have already identified as what are your goals for treatment. Now, you and I haven't really done that for you yet. We haven't gotten to that, which we will be getting to next. Like, what is it that we're going to work on and how can we best help you? And if everything works, what will that look like? How will your life be different? What will have changed for you? So everything that we do is going to be intended to help you to achieve the goals that you have for treatment. So it isn't that we're just going to talk about things at random or whatever pops into your head to talk about. It's that we're going to try to stay pretty focused to talk about the things that are important to you, that are going to help to move you in a direction that is going to be helpful for you. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense.
Okay. And then when we do that, in each session, we will have items identified. Now, the part of this where my experience with CBT comes into play is that depending upon what the items are, there may be different CBT techniques that we know that are helpful in working with certain kinds of problems. And so it would be incumbent upon me to tell you what those things are, to explain them to you, to answer whatever questions you have about them. And then together, we would select which things we're going to use in order to deal with those particular issues.
Okay, so it's like kind of a melange of plans, or is it like we have to pick these things up front?
In each session, we will pick the things that we're going to choose to work on, the items that we have that day. And the items that we're working on from week to week could change. Or there might be certain items that are longer term that keep coming up. Like the level of your pain is something that has been with you for a while and is likely to continue to be with you. There might be some weeks in which we do things specifically about the pain, and there might be weeks where we're not talking directly about the pain, but we might be talking about something else that creates stress in your life, because we know that the amount of stress that a person has is related to how much pain they have. And we would talk about those things, and I would try to explain to you the connection of those things before we work on them. But I would be offering or suggesting techniques that we know from research and experience are helpful to people on working on those kinds of things. And then sometimes there are multiple techniques that we could use for one problem. I would just want to explain to you what those different techniques are so that you could say, well, I like this one, but I don't like the sounds of that one. And if you don't like the sounds of that one, then we're not going to do that one. We're going to do the one that has the greatest appeal to you.
Makes sense so far.
Then at the end of the session, we're going to, as I said before, make a plan for things that you can do between our sessions that will help you to move in the direction that you want to go. I'm also going to ask for any feedback that you have, whether there's anything that I did that was particularly not helpful, or if there's anything that you would like more of, or does the process that we're following make sense to you? Whether or not it sounds like we're on the right track in terms of helping you to achieve the things that you want through treatment.
Yep, I still want to call it homework, but I guess I can get used to that idea of an action plan.
Well, in full transparency, we used to call it homework, but many people, including myself, have a kind of a negative reaction to the word homework. And so we thought it would be better to call it something else.
Smart.
It is different from homework in the sense that I don't decide ahead of time that I'm just going to give you random things to work on. It is that everything we do is going to be tailored based upon what we talk about each day. And it would hopefully be something that you would find useful and that you would want to do anyway. We just want to make sure that we kind of cover that and make sure that you understand what to do, how to do it, that we review any potential obstacles that could prevent you from doing it, and also to make sure that you think that it is something that's actually doable.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any other questions about it at all, or is there anything else I can tell you?
I don't believe I have any other questions.
Okay. I hope that this example gives you ideas and confidence as you explain the session structure to your own clients. I cannot stress enough how important the structure of the session is in providing good CBT. Let's listen to what Dr. Heinemann has to say about this topic. When you are finished with this video, I hope that you take some time to think about the ways in which you might want to introduce session structure to your clients. Then, like with the other skills taught in this course, I encourage you to practice. We have created an assignment to help you develop this skill. Well, we're at the point in the course where we're talking about the structure of the session. Now, as you know, the rating scale has 11 items on it, and we try to incorporate all of those into a good therapy session. And the idea of structure is something that a lot of our clients are not anticipating, don't know anything about. Some of them don't like the idea of having so much structure. And it becomes an issue alone on how we explain this to our clients and how we get their buy-in. So I'm just sort of wondering, what has been your experience? How do you explain what the structure is? And where do you go from there with your client?
So that's part of the first therapy session. So I start off with, as part of CBT, what we do is we structure our sessions. And what that means is we'll be getting different kinds of information at different parts of the session. You can think of it as like a beginning, middle, and end.
Okay.
And I'll say the reason that we do this is because I want to make sure we're getting at what's most important to you. And I want to make sure we have time to really thoroughly cover something, and then you're going to leave feeling better and having some kind of plan of action that you can take with you. So it's coming up with, okay, we're going to structure it traditionally. This is the rationale. And then I check in with the client, so how's that sound to you? Does that sound okay? So there's the general structure. And then for that first session, as I'm going through each part of it, I tell them what I'm doing and the rationale for it. So I can say, usually I start with something called the mood check. And that's when I'm going to take a look at your measures this week. I'm also just going to generally ask you how your mood's been since we last spoke, because I want to make sure that what we're doing in here is actually making a difference. And also, we want to go based on what the research says is most effective. And the research shows checking in with your mood and getting these ratings actually improves your outcome. So I'll explain it. How's that sound to you? Like, is that something you're okay with doing? I've had some clients who say, you know what? These measures are dumb. I don't like filling them out. It's really annoying. I don't want to do this every week. So I kind of say what Judy taught me. I really appreciate you telling me that. Like, thanks so much. That's really important information. And then we can figure out where to go. Would you be okay just verbally telling me how your mood's been instead? Does that work out for you? And pretty much everyone says that's okay. So it's getting the general structure, kind of giving the rationale for that, but then going through each part too and saying, this is what I'm doing. this is why I'm doing it, and then getting feedback. How's that sound to you?
So one of the important points you're making here is that you spend a lot of time explaining this to clients and providing a rationale and explaining to them what you're going to do, and even explaining it to them as you're doing it, that this is what's going on here. So you do a lot of prep work in order to both get feedback and get buy-in from your client to be accepting of the structure.
And that also just gives me the benefit of the sessions afterwards. So I hear so much from supervisees. This person just talks and talks and talks. If I can tell them, hey, you know, part of doing the bridge is just getting at what's most important of what's happened between sessions. What that means is maybe a few sentences about positive events, or maybe some stressors or some things that you want to talk about. Does that make sense to you? So then when the person comes back the following week, they know what's going on, and they know they're not going to provide, you know, a whole paragraph of information in that. So it makes everything easier on my part too.
Okay. So now, you know, of course, that there are the 11 items on there that are in the forefront of the therapist's mind, that I've got to do all of this stuff. What do you say to your clients about the 11 items on the rating scale?
I think of the rating scale as more what I need to keep in my mind and have an idea of what I have to get accomplished, but it's not something the client really needs to know about of, hey, just to let you know, I have these 11 items and I have to go over each one of them, because not everything's going to make sense to the client. Like telling them, well, I need to choose my intervention, but then I need to figure out how well I did it, you know, versus more, this is your role in it, and this is what we need to do together as well.
So that's great to know this, and that might relieve some therapists of a certain amount of responsibility that they might feel that they have to also explain all of these things, but we don't necessarily have to tell them about all of that. But what you said in the beginning was just explaining the structure, like a beginning, a middle, and an end, is maybe as much as the client needs to know, and then the rest of it is for us, the therapists, to manage.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.